Hey, good afternoon, everybody. John here from Rotting Box, coming to you live from Buffalo. It's a beautiful day outside here in Buffalo. We've got the sun shining. It's a beautiful mid-60s. Really, finally, springtime. After last week, it was snowing. Last week, just over this weekend, it was snowing here in Buffalo. So we're really excited. It looks like the weather has broken for good finally, and we can finally get outside and enjoy the outdoors a little bit. So I want to touch base on a couple things this week. We have a cool new feature in Rotting Box that went live this morning that I want to tell you about, that actually relates to another cool feature that recently came out that you may not have caught. And there's a few features actually that are related that we'll talk about. Then we're going to talk a little bit about billing and pricing and rates and coding and some of the cool things that software can do in that space. So let's talk about Rotting Box first. Usually I start with an industry tool. I want to talk about Rotting Box a little bit today and some of the new features. So our customers that are watching live or that watch this afterwards, again, please share this with your teams. Have them like our page. Have them watch these live videos every week. We'll talk about the new features that are coming out every Friday. So this week we released something kind of cool, little thing, but I think it goes a long way, and it's related to the assignment suggestion tool. So I know there's a lot of folks that I run into actually and talk to that don't know what the assignment suggestion tool is. So let's start there. When you have an empty assignment on your dispatching screen, so your assignment is the driver and vehicle that you're giving that trip to, when you have one that is not assigned, if you hit that, go over that drop down and you give it a right click, what that's going to do is load the assignment suggestion tool. And what the assignment suggestion tool is going to do, it's first going to identify, is this an on-demand trip or am I pre-scheduling? And it's going to behave differently depending on how it does that. So if it's an on-demand trip, which is a trip that's either, the pickup time is in the past or within half an hour of now, it's going to go and use the on-demand. So if you have our GPS feature turned on, it's actually going to use the live location of your vehicles to generate. If you don't have our GPS feature turned on, it'll be projecting the location based on the last status update. So if they say they pick somebody up at this address, it's going to assume that they're, if it's been 10 minutes, they're going to assume they're 10 minutes away from that address, whatever it may be. So that tool is going to kind of take a look at where all the vehicles are, project where all the vehicles are, and it's going to look at their current task and when are they going to complete it. What's their estimated time of completion, or on there you'll see ETC. That does take into account load time. So if you have load time programmed into the mode of transportation that you're using, it will take that into account, and it's going to estimate, okay, how long until this driver and this vehicle have completed this task that they're currently assigned with. Then we're going to go ahead and look at how far away are they from this new pickup that I'm trying to assign, this trip that I right-clicked in the empty field for, and it's going to say, all right, how far away are they going to be? And that's called travel time. So you can actually sort by that field, which is really useful because now I can find the driver who can get there with the least amount of deadhead driving, least amount of downtime that I'm not loaded in that vehicle, who can get there, without wasting the most time, essentially. Then we have a third column, which is the ETA. So, in theory, the person with the lowest drive time may not always be the best choice because they might not be able to get there on time, right? They may have a current task that's going to hold them up too long that they can't get there on time, so we may need to look at other vehicles. That's why, we're not just automatically doing this. It's going to be something where you can choose. And different trips are going to have different priorities. If you're running a little bit late for a trip, you may treat it a little bit differently. Different contracts you may treat a little bit differently depending on the payer and their rules and what your expectations from a level of service standpoint are. So, so that tool is really, really useful. Like I said, a lot of companies don't use it. So the enhancement that we made this week is a setting where you can do one of two things. You can have that tool not show you any vehicle that does not match the mode of transportation. So if it is a livery trip, it'll only show you your livery vehicles. If it is an ambulette trip, it'll only show you your ambulette vehicles. So that is a kind of the one setting for the setting where it's kind of the harsh setting, I would call it, where you're kind of pinning yourself down where livery trips show only livery vehicles, ambulette trips show only ambulette vehicles. Now there's another kind of a lesser control setting that you can use where if you choose a vehicle that is not the one with the mode of transportation. So say I choose an ambulette vehicle for a livery trip, or the other way, I choose a livery vehicle for an ambulette trip. You'll get a kind of a pop-up warning. And the setting on the suggestion tool where that comes in is that actually prioritize vehicles that are the wrong mode of transportation. So when it's ranking the vehicles, when it gives you its initial results as to what vehicles it thinks is best, it will deprioritize the wrong mode of transportation, and then you can use that pop-up tool to say, hey, are you sure you want to give that? So you have some options. You can go harsh, where it's not going to show you the vehicles at all. If you choose a vehicle that doesn't match the mode of transportation, it's going to say, no, you can't do that. Or you can go with the lighter version that's going to give you kind of a heads up, like, hey, these don't match. And then on that tip tool, the assignment suggestion tool, it's going to essentially deprioritize those. So a couple cool and related features there. There are two separate settings. So one is the either the removal of the different mode of transportation on the assignment tool, or the deprioritization, or there's nothing. All the vehicles are prioritized the same. So there's three different levels of that setting. Then there's a second setting, which is, can I assign vehicles that have different modes of transportation? So one is, no, you cannot assign an ambulette vehicle to a livery trip. You cannot assign a livery vehicle to an ambulette trip. Two, I'll give you a pop-up warning you that these are different. Or three, I'm not going to do anything at all. You can assign trips however you want. So again, two different features that are interacting with each other, that are separate from each other, but they're interacting and allowing you to have some really cool tools for your dispatch team and scheduling team to be able to choose the best vehicles for your trips. So this will really allow you to put together the most efficient schedules possible. That's what it's all about, right? So if you have questions about that feature, there is a breakdown that should appear if you go to the kind of the orange road to the top left of your Routing Box screen. You'll see the description of the feature there. And as always, you can reach out to our support team, 716-202-9121, to get a hold of us. Or if you're not a customer and you want to make more efficient schedules, you want to see how these features can help you, we can help you with that as well. Same number, 716-202-9121. So let's talk a little bit about billing and pricing and coding trips. So you may have heard the term ICD-10, which is kind of a thing that's been talked about recently. ICD-10 is essentially the newest coding method. So it's the newest method that trips are coded for medical coding, really, essentially. So it's not just trips, but it's all medical coding. So that's what ICD-10 is. So and that's what Routing Box has the capability to do, as well as really kind of any coding you want. You can make it into your own custom coding. That's what makes Routing Box cool. So what we want to talk about today is kind of how do we get the right codes and rates assigned to trips. So we did a previous session where we talked about billing, CMS 1500s versus EDI billing, and some of the tools available there. So if you want to learn more about that stuff, go back into our history, check out that video. You can learn all about that. But today I just want to really talk about how trips, especially in transportation, are properly rated and coded. So I've seen there's a lot of different ways, it seems, out there to solve this problem. But I think the way Routing Box goes about it is really the best and most thorough way. So here's kind of how this works. So our engine, essentially, that drives this, it's a screen where essentially what you can do is put together all the different combinations of trip parameters. So there's all these different trip parameters that could affect how the trip is rated and coded, right? So you have the purpose of transportation can add a modifier. The distance of the trip could potentially add a modifier. There could be specific needs, whether it be the seating need or other needs, that may affect the way the trip is coded and rated, whether that be ICD-10 coding or otherwise. So it's really important to have a really powerful tool that can take all those parameters into account, weigh everything, and kind of make some decisions as to what this trip is, and then create the proper rates and codes. So there's just so many factors that go into it. Again, we have mode of transportation. We have the reason. Some situations, the reason the person is being transported could affect the code itself. Then you have needs. Is it a two-man assist? Do they need oxygen? Is it a child that has special needs? What special needs? Is there an aid involved? So all these things that could, again, affect the way that trip is coded and or rated. And both of them are important. If you're submitting your billing, obviously not only do your rates need to be accurate so you get paid properly, that's important. And obviously you don't want to overbill, that's not a good situation either. But your coding very often will need to be accurate as well. Even if it's not a medical billing situation where you have ICD-10 coding, even if you're just sending invoices, usually your payer is going to want that itemized to know exactly what you're billing for. If that trip is not coded properly as well as rated properly, that payer is not going to have the right information, which obviously may cause them to reject your bill, which we don't want that. We want to get paid, right? So So, you know, when you're shopping for software or you're looking at different solutions, you want to make sure that whatever you have is very, very thorough. It's not just, oh, here's a pickup fee and a mileage fee. You have, obviously, deadhead mileage beyond a certain distance. We could have, again, all the different trip needs, purposes. So many things going in. Make sure that all the factors that go into your trips are included in your solution so that you can make sure your trips are rated and coded properly. And as always, we always recommend software for this simply because we're humans, we make mistakes when we do these kinds of things. So if you'd like to talk to us about your trips, whether you're an existing Routing Box customer or whether you are someone who's looking at getting into software, let's talk about your trips and your rates and how they need to be coded and how that works. Let's talk about how we might be able to help you with that. Again, the number is 716-202-9121. You are always welcome to also comment on this video, send us a message via Facebook, comment on our page. You can email us, whatever works best for you. We're happy to have that conversation. Again, one more time for that number, 716-202-9121. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. Hopefully you have some awesome weather to enjoy like we do, and we will catch you next week.